So there's actually two other endings. There's the regular ending, and then there's the Tails ending, which is basically the same as regular ending. I've shown you that and a lot more in a bonus video. Now, sometime, I don't know, I have a lot to cover. Like Sonic 2 beta stuff, like, you know, a whole Hidden Palace Zone. Don't worry, you'll understand when you see the video. Till then, just sit back, relax.
Sweet! Can't wait for the bonus video! When are you making the Sonic 2 bonus vid? So, how's that Sonic 2 bonus video coming? You ever gonna make that Sonic 2 bonus video? Where's the Sonic 2 bonus video? Still waiting on the bonus video. Please make the bonus video before you retire. Aw, no bonus video? Still waiting for the Sonic 2 bonus video. 8 years later and I'm still waiting on the hyped up Sonic 2 bonus video. 9 years later and still hyped about the bonus video. No bonus video? Hey Cybershell, when's that Sonic 2 bonus video coming out? So it's time to do the Sonic 2 bonus video? Oh boy, sure would be nice to have that fucking Sonic 2 bonus video. I love how he mentioned the only reason he made a Sonic 1 bonus video was so that he could do one for the second game. He's a lazy douchehole about actually doing things is what I've gathered from his videos. Too bad you never made a Sonic 2 bonus
I want to see
video,
from you
though.
now. 2 more years
Number
till you
one,
do that
the
Sonic 2 bonus video that you never made.
Can't wait!
It's a fierce competition between the Sonic 2 bonus video and the release date of Half-Life 2
you ever do a
Episode 3
playthrough of Metal
In
Gear
fact,
Solid
the only
3?
reason I made a
One
Sonic 1
sexy
bonus
voice.
video was so that I
should
had
the
an
Tails
excuse to
run.
make a Sonic 2
Bonuses for
bonus
2 and
video.
3.
And Sonic CD.
Because I know you still get a lot of
Please,
passion.
I beg of you.
Sonic 2
And I don't blame you.
bonus video. Is the bonus video officially abandoned, or is it still something you intend to do at some point? You made it sound so interesting to your
Sonic 2 bonus video. I'll say this on behalf of Cybershell, because I doubt he gives 2 fucks about these anymore. These were made count them, 4 years ago, and by the end he was getting damn tired. There are no bonus videos. There will be no bonus videos. Jesus fucking Christ, you people do not know how to take a hint. And this is literally just a small fraction of all the comments I've received over the years. Look, I'm here to tell you guys, once and for all, I am not making a fucking Sonic 2 bonus video. I don't know why, after 9 years, you people still... Oh, what's the fucking point of this joke? You guys already know you're watching the goddamn bonus video right now, so let's just skip this shit and get right into it. Listen up, all you playlist makers. Your playlists are now obsolete. Better hurry up and update them before you look like a fucking idiot. Seriously, there's 4 fucking pages of this shit. I guess that's what I get for being too lazy to make an official playlist to put on my channel until literally just now. One of the reasons I kept putting off making this video in the first place is because there's significantly more cut content in Sonic 2 than Sonic 1, and a lot of it has become fairly common knowledge by this point. But apparently on YouTube you're allowed to make a video series that's basically nothing but reading off the cutting room floor, because people on this site are just too goddamn lazy to read things. So, yeah, let's get started. I'm gonna blow through the boring stuff quickly so we can get to the actually interesting parts. Here are screenshots of the regular Sonic and Tails endings. I know I said I'd show them off in this video, but honestly, who gives a shit? If you want to watch them that bad, just go look up a fucking YouTube video, or just beat the game yourself, you lazy piece of shit. To activate level select for this game, go into the options menu and play the sounds 19, 65, 9, 17, which is Yuji Naka's birthday. Then on the title screen, hold A and press start. Now to activate debug mode, on the level select sound test, enter 199211124, which is the North American release date of the game. Or if you're using a Pro Action Replay, you can just use the code FFFFFA0001. I'm not going to be going over the details of exactly how debug mode works again. It's basically the same as Sonic 1, so I already went over it in my Sonic 1 bonus video, which, again, you've had 9 years to watch.
So something every true blue Sonic autist such as myself noticed as a kid is that in the sound test, track number 10 is for a full level song which never actually appears anywhere in the finished game. This is in fact the background music for a cut level known as Hidden Palace Zone. Also left in the final game data is this unused level select icon. In the final version of the game, you can use a cheat device like a Game Genie to access the stage, but as you can clearly see, it's an unplayable glitchy nightmare. However, we can use debug mode to fly around and see some rings and objects mixed in with all the garbage graphics, so it's kind of fun to explore. To get a better understanding of this stage, as well as the other scrap stages, we need to look back at the two earliest prototypes of Sonic 2 that have been located and dumped online. There were some later beta builds leaked, but these were from much closer to the release of the game, and are all dated as being from the same week of development, so I'm just going to be looking at these first two, because that's where all the good shit is anyways. The earliest known version of Sonic 2 is called the Nick Arcade Prototype, named such due to its similarity to the version of Sonic 2 shown on at least 2 episodes of Nick Arcade. This version is either extremely similar or exactly the same as the one shown on the show, but there's no real way to actually confirm that. This prototype was sold to DRX in cartridge form for $1,500, and it was dumped and released online November 7th, 2006. So what are the major differences in this prototype? Well, for starters, the title screen is totally different. Sonic himself uses a different sprite, which is closer to his Sonic 1 design, although it's not exactly the same. The spin dash is a work in progress. You can only charge it once, and it just uses the spin sound from Sonic 1. The horrifying spike glitch from Sonic 1 is still present as well. The end-of-act signpost for Sonic and Tails use a different, symmetrical design, although Robotnik's is still the same. There are also some truly baffling mechanics in this early version. For one thing, in this build, if Tails gets hit, you lose all your rings, which is total bullshit. Go fuck yourself, Tails, you little mutant piece of shit. It's also worth mentioning that Tails' AI is much simpler and even worse at following you than in the final game. There's also this utterly insane mechanic where if you run into a wall at high enough speed, you fall on your fucking ass. I honestly have no idea why the fuck they thought this would be a good mechanic to have in a fucking Sonic game, but it's not really worth getting worked up about since obviously they realized it was stupid and removed it before the game came out. Probably pretty early because this is the only prototype it appears in. Pressing start on the title screen takes us to Emerald Hill Zone. Curiously, Tails is disabled in this zone, possibly because this build actually was designed for use on Nick Arcade. They didn't want things to be too hard by having Tails running around and losing all your rings like a goddamn spastic little piece of shit. Both acts have somewhat different layouts, Act 1 in particular, and this zone has the only complete Sonic 2 boss in the whole prototype, although the animation isn't quite done, and it still uses the Sonic 1 explosions. Also worth noting is this weird little bat monster that's cut from the final version of the game. Kind of looks like some kind of fucking snail or something. I mean, I don't know, who cares? He clearly sucks. I mean, they cut him from the final version of the game. He's not even canon. He doesn't even get a name. Get out of here, you no-name piece of shit. Now, beating this zone kicks you back to the main title, but using a level select code, we can access the other levels present in this build. And as you can plainly see, it's still using the Sonic 1 level select. This essentially proves that Sonic 2 was built off of Sonic 1, something which had long been suspected due to the fact that numerous sound effects left over from Sonic 1 can be heard in the sound tests, which go unused. So I guess let's go through these levels and see what's there. First up is Green Hill Zone, and it's Green Hill Zone. So the graphics are kind of fucked up, and the collision is broken, so it's kind of impossible to basically play it. I mean, it is possible to navigate through the fucked up collision if you really are tenacious. And if you can make it all the way to the end of Act 3, you can fight a fucked up version of the original Green Hill Zone boss, if you're so inclined. Now, using a Game Genie, it is actually possible to restore the original collision, but it's more fun to just try and get through the fucked up version using debug mode to unstick yourself if necessary. But basically, it's just a fucked up Green Hill Zone. It's not terribly exciting, so let's move on to Marble Zone. Well, it's Chemical Plant. A very early version of Chemical Plant with a somewhat different layout. It doesn't all work properly, like the tubes don't work yet. And Acts 2 and 3 are completely identical to Act 1, so there's really not too much to see here. So let's just move on to Spring Yard Zone. Okay, now, this is where shit gets interesting. as Springyard is actually a somewhat playable version of Hidden Palace Zone, complete with little dinosaur and bat badniks. Unfortunately, it's not possible to actually complete the zone. Eventually you'll get to this large emerald-looking object, which blocks a pipe that doesn't even go anywhere, but it kind of looks like the Master Emerald. All evidence actually seems to suggest this is just one of those things you jump on to break so you can enter a tube like they have in Chemical Plant Zone. I'm not totally done talking about Hidden Palace Zone yet, but let's move on to Labyrinth Zone for now. And it's nothing. It's literally fucking nothing. Just nothing. It's Chemical Plant tiles, Labyrinth Zone ripple effect, Marble Zone ring placement, and that's it. Wonderful. Let's check out Starlight Zone. So Starlight is just Emerald Hill Zone. I should mention that if you could hear the music right now, it would just be Starlight. All the levels still use the Sonic 1 music. I basically already went over Emerald Hill Zone, so let's just move right on to Scrap Brain. It's a very early version of Hilltop Zone. The background doesn't animate, the lifts aren't completely functional, and neither is the lava. The seesaw uses a green orb instead of a soul. While Act 1's layout is complete, the playfield limit has not been changed from the Sonic 1 level, so at some point just following the natural path of the level will kill you. Act 2 likewise has a certain point which automatically triggers a crash. In Sonic 1, Act 3 of Scrap Brain Zone was technically just Act 4 of Labyrinth Zone, and since in this build Labyrinth Zone is just garbage data, it's always Act 3 of Hilltop. And just like how Final Zone in Sonic 1 was technically part of Scrap Brain, this zone just loads us into a corner of Hilltop Zone. And as expected, there's basically nothing here. We can either jump down to the left and get stuck, or we can walk to the right and crash the game. There are some unused sprites of Sonic found in this build, as well as some unused badniks and a weird early version of the checkpoint. But other than that, we've basically covered everything of note in this prototype. It's time to move on to the second earliest known prototype, the Simon Y build. Named after Simon Y, who discovered this ROM on the Chinese GeoCities page in 1998, the actual ROM image likely came from a demonstration card that was stolen during a New York toy fair in 1992. So what's different in this version? Well, the general gameplay differences are mostly the same from the Nick Arcade prototype, except for this weird glitch where if you collect 100 rings, it plays a sped up version of the Death Egg music instead of the 1-up sound. Anyways, the interesting stuff is contained on the level select screen, which can now be accessed without inputting a code. You just need to hold A and press start. The list of levels now more closely resembles the final version, but there are still some noticeable differences, so let's quickly run through what these zones actually are. First up is Green Hill Zone, which is actually just Emerald Hill Zone. This and Hidden Palace Zone are the only two zones to contain badniks on this prototype, including little no-names. Just like the Nick Arcade version, this level has the only Sonic 2 boss, and beating him will still send you back to the title screen. There are some minor differences from the Nick Arcade and final builds, but they're not terribly interesting, so let's move on to Wood Zone. This is another interesting Scrap Zone idea. Let me tell you, when I first saw this, I got so excited that my pants were a Wood Zone. Unfortunately, only a small portion of the level is playable. It doesn't go very far before you get to this ramp with a platform above it, which makes it impossible to continue. Using debug, you can see there's a little bit more to the level, including a conveyor belt that doesn't work, and some platforms over to the left, but sadly that's about it. Level collision is pretty glitchy, and Act 2 is completely empty, so let's move on to Metropolis Zone. The layouts of all three acts are pretty different, and unlike in the final game, they do not loop vertically. The background also uses a slightly different palette. Some of these rotating meshes don't work yet, and also these crushers are totally incapable of killing Sonic for some reason. The lava in this stage isn't complete yet either, and it's not actually possible to complete any of the acts. The first two simply have no signpost, and the third ends with a very long platform ride into nothingness. It will eventually kill you after you reach the edge of the screen. Good shit. Hilltop Zone again. The level layout has been worked on since the Nick Arcade version, but it's still a little bit different from the final release. You don't automatically spin in the tunnels yet, the earthquakes are silent, and Act 2 ends a little bit early. The lava works now, and the green balls have been replaced. Oh, and the music resembles the final version, but is way more obnoxious. In fact, there's a ton of music in this game that's different from the final version. Some slightly, like being sped up or slowed down by just a few percent, but some are significantly different. I don't have time to go into every single song, but if you want to hear them, just go to the Cutting Room 4 page and, listen there. But I did think this one in particular was worth pointing out because it is especially awesome. Well, here's Hidden Palace Zone again, and it remains mostly unchanged from the previous prototype. The final music for the zone still hasn't been implemented yet, so it's using the two-player Mystic Cave song. Once again, there's no way to get past this Master Emerald looking thing, but even if you could, there's not really anything down here. Although there is this inaccessible area off to the right, including some non-functional flowing water, but that's pretty much it. These underwater platforms over here are the very edge of the stage. Act 2 starts you in a wall, but other than that, it's exactly the same as Act 1, only totally barren with no objects, enemies, or rings. Interestingly, according to an interview with Yuji Naka, this was not actually planned to be a regular zone. Supposedly, Sonic would be teleported in here after collecting all the emeralds or something, and you'd have to beat it to unlock Super Sonic. It's kind of interesting how this was one of the earliest zones they did a lot of work on, and they got pretty far, but ultimately they decided to scrap it from the final game. Oil Ocean was next, and strangely it's using the two-player Casino Night music, even though the track for Oil Ocean is present in the sound test of this build. Both acts have different layouts from the final. Act 1 is totally playable, although there's no signpost at the end. And there's this really strange mechanic with these rolling checkered balls. I'm not exactly sure what the point of these are, but they're kind of similar to a cut item from Sonic 1. Here's an interesting one. Dust Hill Zone, which is actually just Mystic Cave in this build. Both acts have somewhat different layouts from the final, but have few objects and no rings. It seems like Act 1 might have been used for object testing because the first half has a bunch of objects placed at random, while the second half is totally empty, as is Act 2. For a while, people thought Dust Hill might have been an early title for Mystic Cave, but developers have confirmed it was actually going to be the title of a planned desert level, as shown in this pre-release mock-up. Mystic Cave was not originally going to be called Dust Hill. I mean, just look at it. Does this shit look like a fucking dusty hill? It's a fucking cave, dude! Alright, now this one I found pretty interesting. Casino Night is present. It's glitchy, but the layout isn't too different from the final build, albeit missing some important objects. But it looks totally different. It has this crazy pink card suit-based motif that was completely changed for the final build of the game. Again, not possible to complete because there's no signposts, but it's fun to explore using debug mode and running around where possible. Also, for some reason, the background is totally fucked up in Act 2, which is great. Chemical Plant Zone is just Chemical Plant Zone still. It's much closer to the final version, but it's still a work in progress. You get the idea, let's just move on. Oh boy, here we are. It's this one. Genocide City. Genocide fucking City Zone. Unfortunately, the level is not as interesting as the name would imply. Both acts use Chemical Plant's music, Emerald Hill's palette, and they're both completely fucking empty. When I first found this out, I was so disappointed that my pants were a Genocide City Zone. Supposedly this level is going to be a single-act mechanical-themed area, but the idea was scrapped and the level design was recycled from Metropolis Zone Act 3, which would explain why it's the only zone in the game to have 3 acts. Look, you can't really get too worked up over the name Genocide City. I mean, first of all, it's not like they included it in the final game. It was just a potential name for a potential level. Second of all, they're just a bunch of Japanese dudes trying to come up with cool English-sounding words. I mean, how good do you think you would be at naming a bunch of levels in another language? Like, what if someone came up to you and said, do you think Yakusatsu City is a cool name? Well, did you say yes? Because I've got bad news, buddy. You just okayed Genocide City. Just because you thought it sounded cool. So cut these guys a fucking break already. They made Sonic 2 for fuck's sake. When was the last time you made Sonic 2? Unless your name is Christian Whitehead, I'm guessing the answer is never. So please, for the love of God, do not leave some fucking comment about how offensive you think the name Genocide City is, or I'll be forced to make an entire separate video called There's Nothing Offensive About Genocide. Besides, even if this zone made it into the final game, it seems likely they would have changed the name to like Cyber City. Who knows, maybe if development went a little differently, instead of Cyber Shell, I would be Cyber City. Or maybe Genocide Shell. Anyways, next up is Neo Green Hill Zone, which is actually just an early aquatic ruin. The underwater portion isn't fully implemented, so you have to be careful during some of the swinging platform parts, or you can just fall to your death. And funny enough, if you press start on the title screen, this is the zone it takes you to. And once you beat this one, you're sent to Chemical Plant, then Hilltop, then Emerald Hill, and of course, beating Emerald Hill boss will send you back to the title screen. And apparently this prototype copy was duplicated and sold illegally in Asian markets. So there's probably some poor Chinese kid out there who grew up thinking Sonic 2 only has 4 levels and 1 boss, and the final level was the easiest for some reason. And finally, there's the Death Egg Zone, which again is totally empty. It has no music. In fact, something weird happened after I died, which is that all music and sound effects stopped completely, even after it game over, and I had to do a soft reset to get the sound to come back. Very spooky. I think it might have something to do with the sound effect 7E, which if you listen to in the final game also mutes the audio for some reason. But other than this weird little oddity, this zone was fairly disappointing since it's just another fucking empty zone. In fact, there are 4 more unnamed level ideas which also load completely empty zones. Supposedly Sonic 2 was originally planned to span over 18 zones, but it had to be cut down in order to make sure the game could release in 1992. There were also plans for a rock level and a winter level apparently, which never made it out of the planning stage. Interestingly, 21 years after the game launched, Hidden Palace Zone was finally, officially made playable in the 2013 iOS remake of Sonic 2. Accessible by following down the legendary shit pit in Mystic Cave. Finally getting to officially play this zone was extremely cathartic to me for whatever reason. And it even has a new boss, which is pretty cool. And now it looks like the general idea for Dust Hill Zone is being recycled from Mirage Saloon Zone in Sonic Mania. So these Sonic 2 prototypes are still influencing games in the series to this day. Okay, so let's do a little interactive exercise that I'd really like you to participate in. Raise your hand if you know about the perfect bonus, and I don't care if you're alone at home, on a crowded bus, or your grandma's fucking funeral, raise your goddamn hand and keep it raised. The unaware, if you collect every single ring in an axe, you are awarded with a 50,000 point bonus, which is an automatic extra life. Now, to those still raising your hands, how many of you have actually gotten a perfect bonus? Alright, that's pretty good. Now, how many of you have gotten a perfect bonus on a level that is not Emerald Hill Zone? Let's see, there's hardly any hands left, but now to you special people with your hands still raised, how many of you have gotten a perfect bonus on every single level in Sonic 2? Now, unfortunately, I can't actually see any of you, but let it be known that anyone who's still raising their hand is a motherfucking liar, because you cannot get a perfect bonus in every single stage. There are plenty of acts in the game which have rings in unreachable locations for whatever reason. And this isn't even all of them, but you get the idea. What's interesting about some of these ring locations is that they appear to line up with locations which would actually make sense in the Simon Y prototype. It's not that these rings are necessarily there in the prototype, but if we look at the coordinates that these impossible rings appear in, it would actually make sense because they would be accessible. Last, I just want to talk about a couple pieces of trivia. The first is this door sprite found in Chemical Plant and Death Egg Zone. Now, it looks totally normal to me because I've seen it literally hundreds of times throughout my life. But if you actually stop and look at it, it kind of looks fucked up. And that's because it's supposed to look like this. You can see this in-game by using debug to place one. And the reason that it happens is because of this. Another oddity is this set of 3 rings in Metropolis Zone Act 2. Now pay attention to my ring counter. You'll notice that when collecting each ring, for some reason, it increases the ring count by 4. That's because this is actually 4 columns of rings laying right on top of each other at the same coordinates. Here's a weird little glitch that's present in just about every beta build of the game. If you use the second controller to jump into an enemy as Tails after Sonic is dead, you will gain an insane amount of points. That's enough points to get you 30 extra lives. In fact, this glitch is still present in the final version of the game, but they made it so Tails immediately goes into his flying animation when Sonic dies, making it impossible to pull off. A somewhat infamous glitch in the final game is this thing you can do in Emerald Hill Zone by using the debug mode to spam the fucking shit out of the waterfall object, while also moving the camera back and forth incredibly fast. If you do it just right, you'll confuse the game, and Sonic's palette will get all fucked up, making him look all green and black. Sonic fans have dubbed this quote-unquote character as Ashura and have drawn literally hundreds of trillions of pieces of fan art of him. Because of course they have, they're fucking Sonic fans. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the weirdest fucking cheat code in this game. If you just enter 1124 on the normal sound test, then you'll start the game with 14 continued, but because of some glitch, the only sound you can hear is the Oil Ocean music, and it plays during every level. Not really worth it in my book unless you really fucking like that song. If you have completely run out of things to do in Sonic 2, then here's one last totally pointless code to enter. As you may know, in the US and European region, Tails is called Tails. But for Japan, in-game he's called Miles. If you press up, 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 down, 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 up on the title screen, you'll hear a ring chime. Press start and you will see that Tails is now called Miles. Absolutely fucking incredible. Obviously in Japan, this changes the name from Miles to Tails. Finally, a little known fact about Sonic 2 is that they were considering shipping the game with holographic labels, but eventually decided against it due to the cost of producing them. They weren't completely unused, however, as the Nick Arcade prototype uses one of these labels. Oh my god. I did it. I really did it! I finally fulfilled all my outstanding obligations to the Sonic LP. After 9 years, I'm free! No more comments about the Sonic 2 bonus video. It's over! It's finally, truly over.
What's Rabbit? Where's the Tails?
Oh my god, people, come on! Why are you still asking me about this? For years, I would get comments every week saying, where's Tails Run? Where's Sonic CD? So eventually, I did a Tails Run